And welcome back to yet another exciting edition of Light Beer Dark Money. I am Light Beer Man Chris Clements, and that on the screen, for those of you who are watching online or some distant location, is Sean Noble zooming in from the Beverly
How are
Hilton.
you? The
Good,
Beverly
Sean.
Hilton, where they do the Golden Globes.
Yes, they do the Golden Globes there, and they just redid that hotel not too long ago uh, during the I think just during COVID, or right before that, maybe. I don't know, but it's all been redone. Saw the scaffolding years ago. But we have another podcast that talks about what Sean is doing there. But we really want to talk about right now is the fact that there was a party at the White House the other day. Did you see it? James Taylor?
I did see it, and they were celebrating the Inflation Reduction Act at literally the same time the new inflation numbers came out. And guess what? Inflation continues to go up. It's at 8.3% year over year nationally. And here in the Great Valley of the Sun, it is 13%.
Yeah, we lead the
Inflation
nation
is
here
13.
in Phoenix Metro in Arizona, 13%, and that number is not coming down anytime soon. We have some of the highest gas prices also, where some locations across the fruited plain are seeing some reductions in gas prices. We are not seeing that here in Arizona, and it's causing people some consternation when they have to make choices between food and gas. And so energy,
Well, I will.
energy and food continue to be a vexing part of this economy.
Well, and I was as I was walking to the hotel today, I came across this. I don't know if you can see that. Those are the gas prices in Beverly Hills.
Oh yeah,
658. Yeah.
yeah.
So
They were as high as 7 during the summer. I mean,
it's
it might be
it's
coming down a
just
little
not
bit.
good. Not good for the American consumer. Not good for Democrats because they really did think that they could, inflation would start to taper off and not be an issue for the election. But here we are, you know, 6 weeks away, 7 weeks away, and it doesn't look like it's letting up.
Yeah, it looks really bad, and the 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 criticism of the brain dead nature of continuing a party on the White House lawn of this nature is completely valid. I mean, they had to have had a heads up of what those numbers were going to be. They continue to dismiss that. Well, there's really no change. It's 8.3% over last year, but then when you look at producer pricing, when you look at everything going on, with even with the possible rail strike, which looks like it's been averted, but what a complete and total disaster that has been because of Joe Biden's proclivity to the unions and those who got him elected, and this week could not be worse for liberal Democrats.
Well, it certainly isn't a good week, and I think we have been seeing over the last few weeks all these stories about how the red wave is really not going to be a red wave, and Democrats have a better chance of keeping the Senate, and they might even be able to keep the House. I've been reading a lot about Nancy Pelosi saying we're going to keep the House, but I think that and Biden's numbers have ticked up slightly. Uh, I think that was kind of a
Mirage.
phantom, a mirage. That's a good way to put it. And real people paying attention to what's happening in their lives, the economy, and their pocketbook, especially the swing voters who will make the difference in these elections. They're just now starting to pay attention to politics, and they're not happy. And that's not going to be good for Biden's party, which means that it's going to probably help most Republican candidates. Here in Arizona, I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. I feel like the governor's race is leaning towards the Republicans. I think the Senate race, you have to give the advantage to Kelly at this point, a slight advantage. But then you've got some congressional races where I think you're going to see the Republican beat the Democrat incumbent. Or in Juan Ciscalani's case, he's going to take that open seat. But Eli Crane is likely to beat Tom O'Halloran in the big rural district. of Eastern Arizona.
And I'm
So it,
glad you bring that up because those are both huge pickups here in the state of Arizona. It changes the dynamic of the delegation really completely. And for
oh,
Eli
flips.
Crane, yeah, I mean, for Eli Crane to be doing as well as he has, newcomer to politics, and really, I think probably running a really good grassroots, fundamental campaign, has obviously had some good advice, but Tom is nowhere to be found in that district, and I think that's what is happening there. What's your assessment?
Well, I think that's been his problem since he first got elected. He's
Sure.
just not worked the district the way that, I mean, you think about when that district was first created, the first member of Congress on the huge sprawling district was Rick Renzi.
Yes.
And he worked that district really hard for years and years and years. People got used to, hey, our member is going to be here in these small towns doing these things on a regular basis. Then Ann Kirkpatrick won the seat, and she did a decent job. She was here and there, but because of the whole Obamacare vote, that made it very challenging for her. And then O'Halloran gets elected, and he really hasn't worked the district at all.
Yeah, and it's a sprawling. I mean, traditionally speaking, it's been reworked a little bit, but it's just a sprawling district. Emanating from Flagstaff all the way through the Navajo reservations, eking down into Taylor and that whole area, and then your hometown of Shoalo and Pine Top, and then it goes all the way down through Globe, and then curves around into Pinal County and Casa Grande. And ironically enough, that's where I've traveled that district a lot. I know that district very, very, very well because we did business there for however many decades. And it's an interesting district. It's fundamentally conservative, very fundamentally conservative, except for parts, of course, of Flagstaff because of the university. But the outskirts are traditional Democrat working class folks, and so the vision and the principles, conservative principles, actually play very, very well in that district.
Yeah, it's a growing up in Sholo. I got to know what they call Pinto Democrats were. They're the conservative Democrats that were part of the Reagan Democrats revolution. They're old school, traditional. They go back. Their grandpa was an FDR fan,
Sure.
but they certainly are conservative when it comes to the cultural issues. And man, in the last few years, the Democrat Party has run screaming away from these types of people. So it's very, very challenging for Democrats to hold. I mean, it's almost all Republicans in the state legislature in this area, and it's just kind of an anomaly in some ways that O'Halloran has been there as a Democrat. But I think that's going to change this year.
Well, and you have to work the district. You have to be willing to go speak with everyone and talk with everybody and know the differences in your constituencies as well. I mean, especially as heavily weighted as the reservations are there. You have to, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm not going to go speak to the Navajos, or I'm not going to go speak to the Apaches, or I'm not going to go, I'm just, because I don't think they're traditionally, Republican voters. But that's not true at all, because all they wanted is to be seen and heard and understood. The vast majority of that constituency voted for John McCain every election. And it was because he spent a lot of time up there.
Yeah, and he followed the footsteps of Barry Goldwater in that regard.
Absolutely.
Barry Goldwater spent a lot of time up there. So I think that you're right. I mean, this is going to be from the state's standpoint, it's going to be very interesting. One of the things, and it's a little pivot,
Yeah.
is going to be very interesting to watch is what is Katie Hobbs thinking about.
That's a great
foregoing a
pivot,
debate.
by the way. I
What?
How do you not? Well. First of all, she didn't debate during the primary either, which I did not know. But how do you not? You're going to be. You want to be the governor of one of the fastest growing states in the union, and you don't want to debate your opponent because she might say crazy things, or you might disagree with the crazy things she says, and but oh, but really, it's because you can't maybe put two sentences together or five thoughts in sequence, and it's going to make you maybe look bad. At the same time, you would think the polling, at least if you believe the polling where it is, you would want to debate. You have to debate. So where do you see that going?
Well, for me, it's astounding because I'm with you. I just don't understand how you can run for the top spot in the state and not have a debate about the issues. And the excuse that, oh, Carrie Lake's going to say crazy things and all she wants to do is make Arizona look bad, that doesn't make any sense. And a lot of people say, well, look, debates don't really matter, and how many people really are paying attention. And what I say to that is the fact that she's dodging the debate will now become a campaign issue, which gives the Lake campaign and those associated with her the opportunity to say, it's in some ways they can actually make a character hit on Katie for being a coward.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
and that's not issue related. And so that's going to have some resonance with people who don't really care about the issues that much. So they now handed Lake a pretty good hit, but for no good reason, because, I mean, the fact that she dodges this debate, I mean, the expectations for her would be so low anyway, that if were able to get through it with only a couple little stumbles and not really saying anything crazy, uh, she'd be fine. But the upside is that if she did a good zinger on Lake or had a good retort or, got aggressive on something, it would be seen as this big, oh, Katie Hobbs really won the debate. She has such a low bar on the expectations game. It's almost a no lose
Yeah.
to do the debate. It's all downside for Lake to do the debate because the expectations would be that she's supposed to wipe the floor. So I do find it interesting that she's dodged it and she's handed Carrie Lake an issue that a lot of people, the chattering class, the conventionalism, say, oh, it doesn't really matter. But I think people care about whether you have courage.
No, I completely agree with you, and it just seems unfathomable to me that you're like I said before, a candidate for a statewide office. You should be willing and able and excited to debate your opponent on the issues. And she can paint Carrie Lake all she wants. I'll give Carrie some credit. What I'm hearing is that she's reaching out to every Republican that she can. She's doing a lot of grassroots meetings. She's trying to bring the party together for this election. I think that's reflected in the polling. So I mean, this is this. You're
Yeah,
right. It's Katie's. It's her game.
well, and I don't. Katie has not done, I don't think, as good a job of unifying her side uh, as Kerry
Carrie
has
has.
for the Republican side, which is totally different than what I've expected. And I think that Lake meeting with Ducey was important, and you have a lot of people coalescing now around Lake because they understand that this office is super important to our everyday lives. It's definitely more impactful to our daily life than the president, for example.
Well, and I think you look around and you see what's happening in California with, I mean, there's just the mess that is California, and both. You're there right now, looking at what the gas prices are, and I'm sure you've seen the homeless issue that's pretty much everywhere there now, and the different issues of law and order, and we don't want that for this state. We absolutely do not want that for the state. That's why I actually think the two biggest elections are for Maricopa County Attorney and also for the governorship, because it's going to, and the Attorney General. I think it's going to set the stage for where Arizona goes in the future, and people need to be paying attention.
Well, there's no question that the the county attorney's race is really, really critical. I think Rachel Mitchell has done a good job in the short time that she's been in that appointed position. Her Democratic opponent, Julie Guttengill, is a radical. I mean, she is
She's
a defund the police
she's fully
candidate.
supported by George Soros,
Yeah,
who is a defund the police, cash no cash bail, advocate, and so is she. And
yeah.
that's just
I
if you
mean,
look at the results of that
you see
across the
what
country,
happened.
and you look at what just happened in Illinois. They passed a law where it's basically no cash bail for anybody committing murder, assault, anybody, and it's going to release hundreds and hundreds of felons onto the streets of Illinois. That's what she wants to do for the great state of Maricopa, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. And then if you look at the attorney general's race, I mean, this is one that is important because the attorney general has a lot of ability to. Uh, there's some things they can do, but there's a lot of things that they can muck up in the sense that think about if you have Kerry Lake as governor and Chris Mays as the attorney general. Chris Mays is going to be suing the governor on a weekly basis. And that's just not a great way to run the state. So it has impact. So if you are a supporter of Kerry Lake, you definitely need to be a supporter of Abe Amadei for Attorney General and not Chris Mays.
Well, it seems like Abe is, and I don't know Abe, but it seems like he just released his advisory council, and it seems like he's got some good folks on there, including our good friend General McGuire, who's been on the show, and some others. So
Yeah.
that might bode well for him. I mean, even though the knock on him is his lack of experience, but if you surround yourself with good people ahead of time who are serious and who understand the gravity of the job, you can be successful.
Yes. Yes. That's a job that is very, very much a part of who you put around you
Yes.
because the workings of the Attorney General's office are done by the staff. And he can set the policy, but the work is if he's got people with experience and with knowledge, there's a professionalism there that can continue, then we'll be fine.
Well, it's a scary thought to be, when you look at those other states I mentioned, Illinois and California. We look at the Antifa and Black Lives Matter issue in Portland. I mean, my cousin moved down here about a year and a half ago, fleeing from just lawlessness, sheer lawlessness in Portland and Oregon, and that is what these other candidates who are supported by George Soros, who are the non-law and order candidates, want to bring to the state of Arizona, without a doubt.
Yeah, and it's something that I don't quite understand. It just strikes me as amazing that this is where we are, and that something like what happened in Portland can now come to Arizona based on who we elect for county attorney. I mean, it's very possible because the county attorney sets the tone of who gets prosecuted, and if they say, "Oh, we're not going to prosecute these things," then it just opens the door to chaos.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned another race, and I want to touch on that really quick in the time that we have, and that is Juan Ciscomani's race down in the People's Republic of Pima County. And that is an interesting race in that it was the redistricting commission basically carved that out of a very kind of swath of areas of Tucson that leans Republican, and that's a big deal.
Well, it's a district that, yeah, the makings of it are now more Republican leaning. It's an open seat because Kirkpatrick is retiring, and I think Juan's got a great shot. He's definitely in the top tier of the national pickup opportunities for the House, and so that race is getting a lot of attention in Washington, as it should. He is a dynamic candidate, and he's going to be a leader in Congress. I think he's going to win, and two, I think he's going to be a pretty effective leader that is going to be one of those rising stars. He's young, and he's very smart, and so two things that Congress is not known for: young and smart.
That is true. I mean, that what is the average age of a congressman these days? 60?
I think, yeah, it's more than 60 for the House, and
Okay.
it's like the
Congress.
average for the Senate is close to 80.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, that is correct. That is where we find ourselves today, and why we wonder why we have so many issues. But yeah, well, I've known Juan for a while, and we're hoping to have him on this show. And Juan, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on. I ran into actually his campaign manager yesterday and mentioned that to him. They're running a good campaign. He's got a lot of support with both the Hispanic community and the business community down in Tucson, and that's really important. There seems to be a unity there behind his candidacy that we've not seen in a while. Probably not since Martha McSally ran the second time.
Well, and the interesting thing about this is that this is a race that when he wins, he'll be there for a while. This will be he will be the go-to guy for Southern Arizona, and that's going to give him a great platform. He'll be able to push his agenda, and I would fully expect that over the course of the next few years, he'll be talked about for statewide office.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what a contrast, right, in terms of the two districts down there between a Juan Ciscomani, a very conscious conservative, and a complete and total leftist in Raul Grijalva that runs the entire machine in Tucson.
Well, this will be that'll be fascinating to watch, and I'll put a prediction down right now that Juan wins, Republicans take the House, and Grijalva does not run for re-election next time.
Well, that would be a great gift to Southern Arizona and the rest of the state, for sure. And you might see some actual change, and some actual some different types. That's probably a safe Democratic seat for a while, but you'll probably see some different types of Democrats who want to run for that seat.
Well, yeah, and I think that with any hope, it could be a more rational center line Democrat than the leader of the Progressive Caucus.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, it's both a disconcerting time in our country, but it's also an exciting time for a lot of folks. So, hopefully we can get over this inflation hump, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime soon with James Taylor singing Fire and Rain at the White House. Yeah, I have seen Fire and Rain, and it's called the bill you guys are celebrating. That is Fire and Rain, which I mean, just going back to that is a gift to the Greens, and there's nothing in there that's going to do anything but increase inflation, increase energy costs,
right.
Increase cost of families. There's nothing. It's the Build Back Broke part tray, and it's sad that was passed, and it's going to hurt.
Well,
it's going to hurt working families.
We won't know the real results of that for even until after the election, because it's just the implementation of it's going to take time. It's not going to be good, but as we say every week, lots more to come because we're now 7 weeks away from the election, and it's going to be a ride.
Well, and don't forget this. It's tax time for a lot of businesses who file their taxes in both September and October. And just wait for those, all those IRS agents that are going to be hired between now and next year. That is one result of the election that I hope we're able to grapple with, and that's defunding the IRS to the extent that we can.
Well, at least pull back the huge hiring spree of agents.
Absolutely. So anyway, lots more to talk about. Thank you all for listening. Sean, I hope you have a great conference out there. I miss you here next to me bantering away, but this has been great. And just remember, ladies and gentlemen, that this podcast is founded on the values of faith, freedom, and free enterprise, the great foundation of our country. Thank you for listening, and God bless.
Thanks, everybody.